Good morning. Welcome to Fox 32 Sunday. I'm political editor Mike Flannery, and our guest this morning, we're very honored to say, is the Republican leader of the Illinois State Senate. Christine Radogno represents Lamont and has for several terms now been the Republican leader in Springfield. Are we looking at, we're supposed to adjourn by the end of the month, Senator. Are we looking at a typical legislative season?
Well, my guess is the end of the month would be very optimistic.
All right, so the big question is, Governor Rauner has talked in terms of a grand bargain. There are others, though, in Springfield on the Republican and the Democratic side who say that that's not going to happen. And it's going to be more like a fight to the death, and it's going to go on all summer long. Well,
it will go on at least past the deadline. I'm not sure it will go on all summer long. We have a couple of critical deadlines coming up. June 30th, the Chicago Public Schools have an enormous pension payment due that they do not have the money for and will need help from Springfield. And then on July 15th, we start to cut paychecks for the first of the next fiscal year, and that would be a pretty significant deadline to blow. In my time there, we've never missed payroll.
The governor certainly seems, though, to be willing to do that. You think the Democrats will cave at that point?
Yeah, I think the Democrats haven't quite figured out that it's a new culture in Springfield. I mean, two people, Mike Madigan and John Cullerton, for 13 years have run everything. We have had a relatively...
We had a wacky Rod Blagojevich.
Well, they were absent. The last two governors weren't a huge factor. Now there's not only a governor and a strong one, but one of the other party. So I think there's still a little, maneuvering who can get what they want. But then another factor that hasn't really been talked about too much yet is the impact of this huge pension payment, which is going to require the mayor to start to get involved. And he's not really done a lot in Springfield to date either.
Well, he talks about having the Chicago Public Schools $700 million pension payment, the whole pension fund with its $10 billion or so unfunded liability transferred to you guys.
Correct.
Good idea, bad idea?
Well, I think that it's something that we need to discuss.
How many voters in Lamont would support that?
Well, probably zero, just like that. But that's where the concept of a grand bargain comes in. So if the state helps the Chicago Public School teachers out, what do other taxpayers get in return for that? And that's where the concept of this bargain comes in.
So what do your folks in Lamont want?
Well, they want lower property taxes. They want a better economy, and the governor has laid out a number of items that would contribute to a better economy. They'd like to see term limits. They'd like to see a constitutional amendment on the remap. So there's things they'd like to see as well.
I once asked House Speaker Mike Madigan, who famously was first elected to CONCON in Springfield in 1968. Yeah. I once asked Speaker Madigan if he would accept term limits of half a century. At that point, that ended the news conference, and he walked away. I don't see term limits necessarily emerging here.
Well, and they may not, but the point is the governor has a long list of items that he wants to see accomplished. He understands, I've heard him say, he may not get all of them, but by George, if he is going to help out the city of Chicago and take on some of their problems, he most certainly is entitled to get some of those things on his list.
So workers' comp, and he wants local right-to-work zones. Right. The governor has proposed having entities in the suburbs and downstate, whether it would be a county or a municipality, a township. Do you see
even wards, even city wards,
even a ward in a city
right.
and around the state? Do you see that emerging? Democrats tell me no way in heck is that going to happen, and he can shut down state government. They're not going to vote for that.
Well, I guess we'll see at the end of the day how important it is to help out the city. And a lot of these issues that we talk about have variations of them, and we need to be talking about them. Several states around us have right to work, and those states have done very, very well. Now, is that transferable to Illinois? There's pros and there's cons, but it is certainly a discussion we should be having when we see the world around us changing. We need to look at whether we should change as well.
So we continue to lose manufacturing jobs, and we're going to talk a little bit later about another, in this case, Chicago-based company, Root Brothers, moving to Hammond, Indiana, or at least moving 49. They're expanding with 49 jobs there. Would right to work affect that? Do you think that's going to keep companies in Illinois?
I don't know if that single thing. I frankly think workers' compensation is a bigger issue. That's what I've heard most from employers.
That's what I hear from
years.
business guys and gals.
Yes, without exception. Our unemployment insurance costs are particularly high in this state, so that's another area that I think is on the governor's list of things that we need to take a look at. Both the amount we pay, the length of time that we pay. We want to be sure that unemployment doesn't become a disincentive for work. And that's an issue that needs to be explored.
All right, so are we going to get from the state Supreme Court a ruling on the 2013 pension reform bill? Is that going to come out this month? Or are you guys just going to have
heard, and believe me, I am no contact with the Supreme Court, but I've heard from a number of sources May 21st. So I guess we will see if that actually comes to fruition.
All right, so that doesn't leave you much time then to act before the end of June,
No.
which is when this big pension bill at the Board of Ed comes due. All right, we're going to take a quick break, Senator Radogno. When we come back, we have many more questions, and I'd like to talk specifically about the Illinois income tax and a number of other key pocketbook issues, and explore that freeze on property taxes a bit more too. You're watching Fox 32 Sunday.